advertised in the local source and/or the Star Ledger for newspapers of record. Notice has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building adjacent to the municipal clerk's office. Roll call.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Ms. Martins.
Here.
Mr. Bentavegana.
Here.
Ms. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Johnson is absent. Mr. McNeil.
Here.
Mr. Graves is absent. Ms. Ricketts.
Here.
Mr. Champy.
Here, there being a quorum present, this meeting is now declared open. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the meeting minutes for April the 17th and February the 28th. May I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 28, 2024, April 17, 2024, and dispense with their reading. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Mr. Manguso, at this time, are there any communications?
There are no communications, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hale, would you like to begin?
Sure. Call the case first. What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. At this time, our only case this evening is calendar number 3431, no, excuse me, calendar 3430, 2936 Vauxhall Road Associates LLC, located at 2936 Vauxhall Road, Block 4703, Lot 15.01, and it's for the construction of a multifamily residence consisting of approximately 36 units. Now, Mr. Hale, I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. Is this on? Not sure if it's on. It's on? Okay, great. Great to see you all this evening, and thank you and the members of the public for coming out. Yeah, we're representing, again, 2936 Vauxhall Road Associates. We were here several weeks ago for the commencement of the hearing. We had received, prior to the last meeting, comments from the fire department that raised some concerns regarding the project. We did have a meeting with the fire department, with our clients and our engineer and architect, and based upon that meeting, turn it up too high, based upon that meeting, we suggested that we make certain changes to the building and to the site, and we then did a memo back to the fire department as to what we would agree to, and to address their concerns. We did get an email back from the fire department acknowledging that those changes were acceptable, and it's among them are certain walls, dividing areas of the building, upgrading the sprinkler system, and the like. We did address those concerns. I did get, and by the way, I do want to mention we did have a meeting last week. I think it was last Wednesday. We opened it up to the community to discuss the project and on an informal basis get any feedback. Bishop Campbell from St. Paul's was kind enough to host us, and we had a nice gathering there. And several of the members that are here this evening were in fact there. And again, it was a nice exchange of ideas and thoughts on the project. That's what's transpired. I did get word, and perhaps Mr. Pansula can address it, that apparently the fire department, the board would like us to actually submit exhibits showing how we're going to address those comments from the fire department. And we are having those exhibits prepared, and we will submit them both to the board, and then we'll stop by and see the fire department, give them to them, and actually, rather than just an email, get a formal letter acknowledging the receipt of those exhibits. And then I think with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pansula to address. But that's what we've heard so far. And again, there's really no issues and concerns anymore with the fire department, just memorializing that in plans, okay, not construction plans, but updated plans, and then getting, again, a formal letter from the fire department.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's Rob Pansula, the board attorney. I spoke to Mr. Hale quite a bit about this matter in the past week or so, and with Mr. Manguso as the zoning officer and secretary of this board. I was concerned originally, as I think we all were when we saw the original fire department comments, and they are now on a course to address those issues, but I think it's very important that the fire department, that the applicant takes the time to show the board exactly what's being changed, and that the fire department weigh in on that, as well as Colliers, because there's two avenues of professional review. I did speak with Mr. Hale, and I acknowledged that they had a meeting. So tonight, he's going to look for a short adjournment for the board's benefit and for the public. So what I'd like to just suggest, and this is a little bit out of procedure, what we normally would do, but since the public is here, some public is here tonight to hear the testimony, we're going to go a little out of order. If anybody from the public tonight, I would suggest giving them an opportunity to make a general comment tonight. Normally what we do is you'll ask questions of the applicant's witnesses, and you don't have to, but if somebody tonight, we want to be fair because this is the second night this is scheduled, and we're going to schedule it for the full hearing, I believe either next week or at the meeting after that. I'm not sure if the matter on the 22nd, Mr. Hale, is going to go forward or not. I know we had one other case.
Yeah, actually, that one, and we'll address that. I'll send a letter in, but that's the Ukrainian church. We just got a draft of EdDeck's plans on that today.
Okay.
So we're going to be submitting those to
So
the board within the next day or two. But yeah, we would be.
So that opens the spot for next Wednesday.
Correct.
So the public would know what the applicant is going to look to do, and I would recommend to the board that we accommodate to adjourn it one more week, which will be next Wednesday, the 29th of May. But before we do that, under the circumstances, and as I said, this is a little unique. We don't normally do this, but I would suggest that we have the authority and the board can hear any member of the public if you want to come up and give your name and address and just offer 3 minutes, 5 minutes general comments about the application so the board can consider it, so the applicant can hear it and consider it before we actually have our full hearing next week. So,
Okay. And I do want to also add that Jerry Giordano from Hillcrest Paving, owner of the property, as the board probably and members of the public are aware, this was a construction yard for Papalillo for years, and then Jerry's, he and his family bought this property. And there were, I think I might have mentioned, several iterations. At one time, a medical building was approved, and that didn't go anywhere. We then had a Primrose child care pandemic hit, and a lot of the child care facilities that were approved never got built. So, but Jerry is here, and certainly after the meeting, if people want to ask him some questions too, he's here. So.
and additionally too, I will confirm, the board knows there is information in the packet, as Mr. Hale summarized. His professionals have been working with the fire department, so those issues have been addressed. What he said was accurate, but what we want to wait for is to actually see the formalization of that in print, so the board can consider it, the public can certainly come into the building department during business hours and see it, and/or the exchanges Mr. Hale referred to. It's part of the board's packets tonight, the email. So if any member, Mr. Champion, unless you have something to add, I would suggest letting the public.
I do, Mr. Pansula. I would just ask if we can just keep it to a 3-minute minimum because.
Yeah, we haven't really started. This is very out of character, but in fairness to the public, and the applicant has agreed, I talked with Mr. Hale ahead of time. I think it's important maybe if the board hears some of your comments and general reactions to this application, because we can maybe do something about it at this point. So
And they will have an opportunity to.
address it.
Again, when in the meeting next week.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Pansula and Mr. Hale. So at this time, are there any members of the public that would like to come forward and make comments? Ma'am? Just want to state your name and address. Sure.
Sorry, I don't love mics. Hi, my name is Dr. Tina Kim. My property is 2932 Vauxhall Road, right next door to the current empty lot. So I read about this last month, but unfortunately I was out of town and unable to come to the meeting to hear what was happening, the descriptions. So I came tonight to hear specifically about traffic. Vauxhall Road is super, super congested, especially during commuting hours. My patients that come in and out of our lot have their own troubles. We hear horns being blown all the time by cars that are going fast and not wanting to stop for people coming in and out. And so I was concerned about, I wanted to hear if there was a traffic study that was done and how traffic was going to be coming in and out of Vauxhall Road, especially during, like I said, rush hour. Also, I had read on the letter that came to me about the side lot and the front lot and the number of parking spots. So right now, in my lot currently, we do get people who park and walk away. I have a limited number of parking that was approved by you guys, and when people park and walk away, I don't want to be the terrible neighbor who calls and has them towed. You never want to be that person, right? So I'm concerned about if the project goes forward, what are we going to do about overflow parking? Where are they going to go? They're not allowed to park across the street at the shopping mall. And then next door to that is another medical practice. Are we practitioners going to be the ones responsible for calling to have the cars that are left? And then I read about the fire issue, so I was concerned about that as well, because if there's a fire on their lot and they're proposing to be at 1.5 feet from property line, I'm 5 feet from property line. So so I wanted to hear what was happening, what the plans were, and what changes were being done. So
Doctor,
thank
can I ask you to spell your last name?
Dr. Kim, K-I-M,
K-I-M.
correct. Thank you.
Dr. Kim, thank you for your comments, and I'm sure next week you will hear.
Yeah.
a
I
track
think,
that
Mr.
expert.
Hill, I mean, I don't
Yeah,
want
and
to speak.
perhaps
Yeah,
Doctor, great to see you. Perhaps I can just, on the, with respect to fire, that's why we took it, when we received those comments from the fire part, that's why we looked at it and wanted to make sure that they had no issues. So as we mentioned, Jerry and I met with them, with our engineer, sat down, and we've addressed all their concerns. But we're going to have actual exhibits showing what we're changing, including the upgraded sprinkler system and the like. And with respect to traffic, yeah, we do have a traffic study that was done. Our traffic engineer will be here next week to testify in detail. One of the things when we had our community meeting, we pointed out is that, I don't want to sound like a lawyer too much, but in this zone, there's many permitted uses. And among them could be a restaurant, a bar, any other types of uses. Car wash is one. And our traffic engineer will testify that a multifamily use has much less traffic impact than does those type of commercial businesses. So, but we'll address that. But we appreciate your concerns.
Just one other thing.
Sure.
About,
Here, come.
Sorry. The other question I would want to hear about is flooding.
Yes.
Because it's definitely, when we have high water with, what is it, the Rahway tributary?
Yep.
We get water in our basement now, and if you're going to be covering a large portion of surface area right next door, I suspect that we would get more than double.
Yep.
And we currently get 18 to 24 inches of water in our basement. I can only imagine how much worse it would be.
So Dr. Kim, I can briefly address that also. That came up at last week's meeting, and our engineer explained that to the residents that were there last week, and we're going to address it again, but not to sound like an engineer, but when you build these new projects, there's strict stormwater regulations that are dictated not only by the town ordinances, but by the DEP. So essentially, you can't make it any worse, and you'll hear testimony from our engineer that it'll in fact be better by subsurface detention and the like. So.
My building was built in 2016, and we doubled the amount that was required by the town, and we get water. Mike Lanzafama's excellent engineer will be here with us next week to explain that in more detail. And anything that we design, again, is going to be subject to the review and approval of the Township Engineering Department. And since it'll have to have the scrutiny of the county because it's a county road, and also the DEP. I just want to say, I'm happy to have our neighbors, for something to be there. It's better, I think something to be there is better than for it to be empty, but I am concerned about what will be there.
That's why we're coming before the board.
Also, a side note also is the nature that currently lives there, is there going to be something done to prevent that nature from coming and living on my lot?
Well, there are standards for construction fencing
Yeah.
if an application gets developed.
I actually removed 11 ground
When we're done, why don't you, Jerry's here, take a few minutes and talk to him. Okay, thank you.
And Dr. Kim, and for the public's benefit, in addition to the notice that you received from Mr. Hale's office, if you lived within 200 feet and/or read the publication in the newspaper, the town has the plans as they currently exist. In addition to that are the professional reviews on behalf of the township, which deals with drainage, which deals with some of the other particulars that you're concerned about and should be. But the town does have input on all that, so that is available for review as well.
I think what I would say to that is, like I said, I've been through the process myself, and I think what we see on paper versus what actually happens with nature is very different things. You know, with the town, with my property, like I said, we also had the traffic study, and town said it was okay for us to go ahead and have traffic going in both directions, and it's scary. I'm, not like for myself, I generally come and go when it's low traffic, but I literally am afraid for people driving on that road. There's also people walking down those streets, and I can only imagine with 36 residences, there will be even more people walking down their street.
Well, that's where the traffic engineer, I think, that Mr. Hale will provide, and you hear the details when you compare it to a permitted commercial use, which has an uncontrollable potentially amount of ingress and egress. That really, especially when you have a residential use, which is permitted, I mean, they're here on the density part of the application. Now's the time to try as best as the professionals can. I mean, you do rely on them, you're right, there's no guarantees. You try to get anywhere in this area, not just in Union County of the state of New Jersey. I was late tonight trying to get here from the airport. You know, it's just not on a 5 o'clock flight. So it's just, it's always a work in progress, you know. That,
I mean, I live in Union as well, and to get to my office sometimes on Boxall Road, it is backed up on Boxall Road to past Lincoln Tech from
yeah,
the
some
property
of that
owner.
is the projects that are in the works, which is, you know, you try to have the vision.
And in the other direction, if I go down Morris Avenue, come all the way around to Milburn, it's backed up all the way to Trader Joe's.
No, I understand, but some of that is a work in progress, and as a result of some of the construction that you see, the Parkway now is finishing up, the Route 22 corridor, there is so much, I would submit positive, certainly from a land use perspective, positive things going on, that you can only hope that it's all going to come to fruition someday. Patience is a virtue, but look, that's why we're given the opportunity to have you speak and anyone in the public tonight. As I said, this is a little out of character, putting the cart before the horse, because we don't have the testimony yet. Mr. Hale summarized, he doesn't give testimony. You know, I don't either. We're the lawyers. But I thought it'd be helpful to hear the public's benefit, and it certainly was. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to make a comment?
Good evening, Ron Jenkins, 885, 887 Valley Street, so it's just up the block. Just touching on what Dr. Kim commented about, 36 units. Did I hear a number of parking spaces that will be part of the establishment?
We didn't, when we put our case in, we'll provide that info, but we are not seeking a parking variance. For the site, there's adequate parking under the ordinance.
I mean, but how does that translate into number of spaces?
Again, we'll have our site engineer talk about that. There's a thing called the Residential Site Improvement Standards, which dictates how many spaces you need for the number of units. Jerry, what the top where I have it?
68.
All right, 68 parking spaces.
68, okay. Because the concern is, obviously, the tenants, and I don't know how many cars each tenant will have and visitors, but I know right now, as far as the streets and the parking availability, the few streets that you can park on now are jammed as it is, as far as folks who live there or any visitors that they may have. So, I mean, I literally had, we're on the corner of Vauxhall and Valley, and, you know, at times, a couple people park in my driveway. It's a large driveway, and, you know, maybe because they couldn't find any place else to park. So that is a concern, again, because there are a few streets right around, and they're always jammed with cars already. So 68, you know, I'm not sure if that'll do the job, but It's just a concern that I have.
And again, and you'll hear us, not to tout our case at this time, but by having it a residential project with people there that have their parking spaces, as opposed to, again, if it's a restaurant or another type of facility, where there's much less control over where people park. And by the way, just one other thing for Dr. Kim's question, the good and the bad of it is that the stormwater regulations that were in effect when that project was done are much more stringent now under, particularly in the past year with upgraded DEP requirements. So the regs are very tough now.
And there's no variances that would be imposed for that. The applicant is obligated from a state level to comply with those enhanced standards. It's a difficult process because it's expensive, but if the applicant is going to develop, they need to comply. That's out of the hands of the town. That's governed by the DEP.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to come forward?
My name's Andrew Bross, 965 Valley Street. Thank you, Board, for taking time to open this up to everybody. I just want to say, as a concerned citizen, someone who lives in Vauxhall, who has seen the town change over the near last decade, I'm against this construction. I'm against this project plan. As my other town members have said, there's great concern over the traffic. I take my daughter to daycare, and I will spend 10 to 15 minutes on Milburn Ave just trying to make a right turn into my home. That's time I could be spending with her playing. That's time I could be spending cooking dinners for her, but I'm stuck in traffic every day. This is not just a Monday through Friday issue. It's every day of the week, whether it's a weekend when people are going to Trader Joe's down the road, when people are getting on and off the highway. The traffic is so bad, I had to soundproof my daughter's bedroom because of cars honking, because of traffic. I had to soundproof my office because I need to do work remotely. It's a luxury I have, but I had to soundproof my office because it's so loud outside, because of horns honking constantly. Not a day goes by that I don't watch someone rear-end someone on Valley Street already. They say that they want to build a complex for apartments. Nearly 40 units. You want to estimate everyone's going to have 1.5 cars. There's not enough street parking as it is. There's not. I lost my car during Hurricane Ida because it was parked in my complex. I had nowhere else to put it, and we still flooded, and I lost a vehicle. In terms of flooding, I walk my dog every day. We had normal rainwater. Normal rain this week. East Branch Place, Meyer Place, Franklin Street, and Westline all had flooding already. And I know that they want to say that, oh, this isn't going to impact groundwater, but I've already seen over the last decade how every year it's getting worse. We have regular rain that is causing street flooding. We had an abrupt storm a month ago, and I couldn't bring my daughter to daycare because Valley Street and Franklin Street were flooded. I had to take a day off of work because I could not leave because I was now the childcare for the day because I was flooded in. I could not drive my vehicle through the flooding. I mentioned having a daughter. They want to propose this, but we couldn't get a daycare facility put in that's desperately needed. The average price of childcare these days is $36,000 a year for a family. That's according to the U.S. statistics. The average household income in Vauxhall is $100,000 a year. The average per capita income is $36,000. That's according to the U.S. Census. And they want to put 6 luxury apartments. The last thing anybody needs is luxury apartments these days. We don't need more overpriced housing in the area. No one's going to take it because they would rather go spend that for any of the new construction sites that are going on into Milburn, that are going on into other towns. This lot could be used for better things and not something that's going to consistently, that needs to skirt nearly every regulation. They want to skirt minimum lot width, side yards, building coverage, road signs. You guys don't want to put up road signs? Come on. They don't want to have their property give their neighbors some sense of privacy. 1.5 feet, and you're going to have someone staring out their apartment into your yard? We've already seen complexes like these come in on Springfield Ave and fail, and then become an eyesore to the public. So what kind of backing do we have to know that this isn't just going to stay an empty lot because they've decided that it's not worth it after their first flooding? The public roads on that street already take such a toll that I don't think Union and Vauxhall can handle consistent construction on that street. The amount of potholes that occur on a daily basis just from normal traffic, it's dangerous, it's scary. I don't see any reason why this should get approved. I don't see how this serves a public good. And as a citizen, it's not something I want in my town. That's all I have. I don't have any questions. I don't really want a response from them because they're not members of the community. They say they want to do, they're going to do traffic studies. I already know the traffic is terrible. I don't need somebody to tell me that it's not going to get worse. I don't need somebody to tell me that putting multiple tons of concrete and steel on top of a lot isn't going to push out rainwater. That adding, 60 units, 40 units we'll call it, isn't going to add an extra burden on parking in the area. There's so many better things we could put on this lot, but allowing a company to come in to put something we don't need that skirts every rule is against everything I stand for. Thank you all for your time. Oh, it's Andrew Bross, last name B-R-O-S-S. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment on this application?
Hi, good evening. Kim Eason, 327 Revere Avenue in Union. I know that it was mentioned that
Excuse me, could you please spell that,
my last
your name,
name or Revere?
your last name?
Oh, yes, E-A-S-O-N.
Thank you.
I know it was mentioned that there was a community meeting at St. Paul's last week, but that meeting, from what I understand, was not well attended because most of the members, at least in the Vauxhall community, were not aware that this meeting was taking place until at least a half an hour before. So we didn't have an opportunity to come out and hear anything that was presented. So we came tonight hoping that we'd be able to see some plans and have some discussion, but yet again, the date of when all this happens keeps getting moved. And next week, I know I'm not available, so is there going to be any opportunity prior to next Wednesday to see what the plans look like, what these changes are, so that we can have some reaction to it? I live on Revere, which, as most of you know, is on the other side of Vauxhall. But I go to the Milburn Mall, I travel in that area. Traffic is a concern, as Dr. Kim and the other resident have both stated. So that's my one concern. For those of us that have been out twice, because we were here before, and it got postponed. It got postponed again tonight. Is there going to be any opportunity for us to see and hear what is being proposed, since potentially we could be impacted? And then what are the variances that have been asked for or requested?
All those details are on file. You could look at the plans and look at all the details during business hours any day of the week next week, including the rest of this week.
So if I go to the building department,
Yep,
Mr.
right here at Town Hall.
Manguso's team will be able to show
Yep.
all of us the actual, what it looks
Yep, and
like,
then-
feels like, and all of that stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay,
All
great.
on, and you can offer, hopefully, if you can't make it next week through a neighbor, make sure that your concerns, that's why I thought it was important, at least to the
And-
board, hear your reaction before the evidence came in. It's a little different than we normally do, but I'm glad that we did it, because, we get, the board gets to hear the feedback.
And thank you, too, for the opportunity, absolutely. So, okay, Mr. Manguso, I'll be by. Thank you. Thank you,
for your
board.
comments. Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment at this time? Hearing none.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I just add as the lawyer, it wasn't part of the record officially tonight in that Mr. Hale hasn't even presented the case yet, but it's, you heard it, so I think it's important, and certainly, more importantly, I think Mr. Hale and his client heard it, so, he'll be prepared to offer his direct testimony through his professionals at the time, to try to convince the board that an approval is worthy.
So
Thank you.
noted. Mr. Hale, would you like to sum up? Or?
No, again, we appreciate the public coming out this evening. We're disappointed we couldn't proceed, but we understand the board's request for some details on what we're proposing to address the concerns of the fire department. And with that said, request that the matter be carried to next Wednesday, 7:30, this room, without the requirement of further notice. I don't think we're near close the 120-day time period, but if necessary, we would stipulate to any appropriate extension. So, and
So
again,
noted.
thank the board and the public and the board professionals for their time this evening.
Thank you. At this time, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting and carry it till next week, May 22nd, 2024. No further notice. The meeting will be held next week at 7:30 in this room. So can I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to adjourn calendar number 3430, Vauxhall Road Associates LLC, which wants to construct multifamily residence for 36 units, to next Wednesday, which is May 22nd, 2024, at 7:30.
Roll call.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Ms. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Pentavagina?
Yes.
Ms. Scott? Mr. McNeil? Ms. Ricketts?
Yes.
Mr. Champy?
Yes.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Can I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Opposed? So moved.